Thank you for staying tuned to 92.3 Nigeria Info. Good afternoon to you. And this is Hard Facts with Kala Dakurubatabo. And so I have a conversation that I like you and I to have, and it has to do with River State. You must have seen that second when it comes to Muslim for the year 2022 in Nigeria. Now, according to the statistics or the data from the NBS, River State had 172.8 billion naira as internally generated revenue, just behind Lagos that had 651.15 billion naira. And yes, that is statistics. Now, according to the data, much of this was gotten from tax, that pay as you earn tax, and that was what generated most of the revenue for the states. Also, another major factor was local government taxes. This is the first time River State is ranked amongst the top states in terms of IGR, but I'm most concerned as to how this has impacted the economy of the state. So you would remember sometime in April, we had the conversation that had to do with no foreign investment coming into River State in the year 2022. And we looked at some of the factors that, made this possible, some of the reasons why this was possible. And so I have guests, let's get at it when we spoke to, the investments that did come in River State 2022. It will be my guest on the show today as we look at the impact, the generated revenue in the state, on the state, talking about Ibifiri, Bobmanuel, who is the president of the River State Entrepreneurs. Just give me a minute there. The River State Entrepreneur and Investors Forum. Is the president of the River State Entrepreneur and Investment Forum. Welcome on the show, Mr. Ibifiri Bobmanuel.
Thank you for having me, Kalada.
All right. So, what would be your estimation, or how do I put this now? How are you reacting to this news, this data that River State yet again is ranked amongst the top states with the most internally generated revenue, at least for the year 2022?
Yeah, we're looking at it from we're pleased with it, but at the same time we have some we have some mixed feelings to it, because yes, the state would always rank amongst the top states in the country when it comes to internally generated revenue because of the way the state is structured. But from the report, I'm rather concerned about the gap between the leading state, which is Lagos, on the IGR and Rivers. That's really the part of this is that we seem not to be cool with, because we feel River State should even do better than what we're doing. Basically that's what. But overall, where we left it up a couple of months back while I was on this show with you, when we were talking about the fact that the state was not attracting enough IGR, foreign direct investment, or investment into the states and businesses into the states, as in now where the state is generating so much of the IGR from such business-related activities. It's a kind of a paradox, but you must have to be able to dissect to really get to the meat of the matter. Yes, the state is generating as much as it is generating, is expected to generate that much, because we have factors around what you call the devaluation of the naira, and the way the state is structured, the way the economy of the state is structured in such a way that we're rather practicing a more vertically inverted economy as against the more preferred horizontal structure of the economy. What I mean vertical, it simply means that the state generates a core of its IGR sector of the economy, which is oil and gas, which has to do with natural endowments, and the oil and gas related activities are directly correlated to the to dollar inflows into the country. So because the naira had been devalued, you find out that the naira, because the naira is not doing very well in the international currency market as against the dollar, you find out that the amount of dollar that trickles into the economy will account for a huge chunk of what we have as our IGR, which simply means IGR might have still remained the same, but the amount of the value of the IGR within would have been a lot higher than what ordinarily that would account for. That's basically what we are looking at. So the whole idea is it's good. It's a very interesting situation and circumstance we're faced with in the country and in the states, But most importantly, I think we would like a scenario where we could transit from the vertical inverted what we call a structure to a more horizontal inverted structure where we have a spread, on the MSME front of the state and for the SMEs to be able to contribute as much as they could. But we must give kudos to the handlers of the economy and the state. It simply means there's prospects for growth. The areas, headrooms that the state could really transit and grow in. These are the areas that I think would make a lot of discussion around. We should be making a lot of discussion around as investors and key players in the economy of real estate.
Okay, now you said that majority of the revenue generated came from the oil and gas sector. What does that then say about local production in real estate? Or would I say production in real estate? You are the president of the Entrepreneur and Investors Forum. What does this then say about business environment in real estate?
The business environment of real estate is it could have been better. It could have been a lot better. But I think there's a lot of improvement in that space. Especially coming from the past administration and the efforts that the administration would have been able to put place on sectors like infrastructure and all of that. You could see we're having a lead of life in the whole infrastructure in the state. And we direct under the current administration that is looking more of inclusivity from the point of view of private participation. I think if that's eventually vetted, the outlook of the state will be a lot better than what it is, because we must have diversify the economy to other sectors where the private sector spaces where the private sector would have a better understanding or participation to the economic well-being of the state. Because you agree with me that the private sector, obviously, at every economy, are the income of every economy. And when we have a very lean private space, just like we have in the state, it accounts for the kind of number that we're looking at here. As against other states, the other states like Lagos, that seems a slightly broader perspective of private participation in economic activities as against what we have in the state. But I think that we looked at going by the direction of the government, the previous and current one, and the kind of projects that they put in place, I think that would further drive the expansion of that space. And we, as investors, we can't wait for that to truly actualize. And I'll tell you, one of those sectors that would obviously has potential to improve upon what we're discussing here is like the ring road that is being proposed. If that ring road comes into actualization or execution in another 3 years from now, I think that will further disperse investment potentials and MSMEs activities to other parts of the state, because the state is indeed a little bit choked away. So if that investment comes into fusion, that will disperse all business activities to other parts of the country, other parts of the state, and that will obviously enhance upon businesses a lot more. Then we've always talked about the ease of doing business. The ease of business in this is a lot better than where we are, but we still have a whole lot of headroom to improve upon. There's so many areas that the state would still do better to still improve in that space. We need to begin to look at areas where we should be able to have a window for taxation and tax collection and all of that. And we'll simply need to begin to fashion out ways where the states could really embark on more public partnerships with the private sector to be able to expand on that. Because the more we keep doing, obviously, we would expand on our tax net in the state, and the tax the net becomes more inclusive, where we don't have just one sector providing for a chunk of all of us against where all the sectors would be able to provide for, contribute to that tax net. And when that happens, we find that we'll begin to have meaningful jobs in the states where the jobs would be dispersed amongst all parts of the state and not just concentrated in the capital city of River State, but would be dispersed to other parts of the state. But I think in the wisdom of the government, I think that might be the reason behind the coming up with the ring road that would open up parts of the state.
Okay, so before we go to another question, let's stick with expanding all the local government, because look at the data from the NDS. It also did say that a major part of the internally generated revenue, or a major factor, was local government taxation. And when I checked, River State was not amongst the top 3 with a good system or a good revenue generation from the local government level. Apart from the ring road, what can we really do to ensure that our local governments are viable, apart from Obiakpo, apart from Falga, that we don't have the other people just dependent on these 2 local government areas, to be able to generate revenue? Which will also take me to my main question, which is, how does this impact the common man? Because we're always, top 2, top 3 sometimes, but how does this impact the common man? Maybe the man in Obiakpo will feel better. Maybe the man in Falga will feel better. But what about the man in Asari Toro? What about the man in Amuka? What about the man in Outer East, Outer West? So I'm looking at it from this perspective, but I've got to come back now. When I do come back, I would love if you can, give us an insight into this question that I've asked.
All right, no problem.
All right, thank you.
Facts on 92.3 Nigeria.
All right, 29 to the top of the hour. Thank you for staying tuned. And yes, we're back from the commercial break. If you're just joining us, you're tuned to Hard Facts with Alada Basketball. And we're looking at River State's rank in IGR in the country, and we're ranked number 2, just behind Lagos. And we are looking at this has impacted the economy of River State. And this is not the first time we're ranked at a top level when it comes to IGR. And so, how has this benefited the state? I have Mike, who is the president of the River State Entrepreneur and Investors Forum, and talking about Ibifiri, Bobmanuel, and he's joining us via the phone. Welcome back, Mr. Bobmanuel.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so before the break, I asked the question. When we were talking, we talked about extending development and also degeneration to other local government areas, because each state we have a choked structure where it's just focused on Falga and by extension Ogapo local government area. But when you, like you did earlier, compared to Lagos State, it's another one local government state. You see almost all the local governments have got some level of development, even all the local governments, and that's one way by which they thrive in terms of election and all of that stuff. So apart from the ring road, because the ring road still has a free deadline, how can we harness the various potentials in the other 21 LDAs? What can we do to improve our internet revenue by extension development in the states?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting one. Yes, I've always said that the potentials of the state is enormous. It's really enormous because looking at the prospects that we have is virtually everywhere you turn around and you look at. And my posture had always been we should be able to harness it by coming with policies that would fast track the harnessment of the actualization of that dream. Because the case where we have Lagos State generating as much as 600 billion annually for 2023, as against what River State generated of about what we generated
170 plus. Yeah.
Yes, I think the disparity is so much, and it's a pointer to the fact that we need to go back to the drawing board to see how we could bring every other government to the party. Now, policy becomes a key factor to actualizing that. Policy becomes a key factor. Now, I made mention, I talked about the growth and the importance we are looking at, or we envisage that project would bring fusion. But in going beyond that, because that project would obviously bring a lot of inclusivity and open up border spaces related towards Oyibo, because of the state, the way it is situated, and the posture of the people around the Oyibo community and all of that. So the government simply needs to come up with clear-cut ideas and policies on how they could sustain such migration and see how they could provide for proper amenities that would even enhance that migration. And what I'm talking about the amenities are begin to look at how they could serve that community that is growing organically better than what's currently there left with. And that is local to quick innings. I need to rescue one carrying out the business in that environment. And what it is today as an economic hub in the states. And that would obviously improve upon the IGR in the local governments like Oyibo. Then you have local governments that we could term or map out as like agro belts in the states. Because they have a lot of agri-related, we have a lot of arable lands in those areas that are so untapped that you now need those spaces for the criminals to go and invest themselves in. How does the state government actualize such potentials that are just lying fallow? They need to come into such spaces, and they need to provide security in those spaces, and they need to provide incentives for those spaces for such agro-based businesses to be, to migrate to those specific scenarios. That would area in itself. There's a cost solution that's going on in development has to do with agro business. The Oyo State government had created agro spaces in a certain local government of the state. They've gone the first tranche of that and invested top. And so the council with like IGA, the likes of Track, tractors and all of that. First phase of that investment is a huge success. The second phase, as we speak, had all been subscribed. Even the third phase that they've not even gone to even start, they've not even done they've not even started. They're actually still on the conceiving stage on the table. Had all been subscribed. So it shows that the Nigerian agro space has a lot of potentials and it has a lot of interest. What the government simply needs to do is not necessarily to go and start to invest as in partake fully in it. What the government simply needs to do is to put those clear-headed policies, and the clear-headedness would include provision of the land, where I'm talking about agriculture in this case, provision of the land, provision of security, provision of the basic infrastructures like roads that will take them to those spaces, and some kind of tax incentives and all of that. And those funds will come in from the private and immediately those to allocate them to balance in part of the date. And really settled where they are today. When I mean the economic works, they're not very settled where they are. So what ordinarily the government should, the initiative that we at the Investors Forum are expecting from the government is for the government to take the responsibility and identify a new settlement for that business hub. Yes, they have identified 2 different settlements for such business hubs, like in the past, because they're affiliated members of the Investors Forum. In the past, there's some kind of movement around the Oyibo axis of Port. But that is not good enough. They need to come up with a clear plan on how to migrate and transfer settlements to a more what we call welcoming environment where amenities will be provided for them. Because if such blueprint is put in, you find out that it makes it even easy for the private participation to come into those spaces. What they need to do is compare them to what's basically important for the students. Some assurances. Community will go there, it goes to Port. But it is very important the role that community plays in Lagos State. And if you imagine the amount of IGR that you could generate if you provide a more befitting environment for them to do their electric market, even if a bigger headroom development and for IGRs to stream into the world of the office. So this sort of thing we should be, because everything should be part of this area. And that shrink, going by the studies that we've carried out at Investors Forum, is not expanding, it's rather shrinking. But the amount of funds that shrinking space is being oil and gas is contributing to the coffers. It's being because you that because they're all what they call all based in local area. But when you find that it's even more drop doing festival triple, even more because of it is in Nigeria. I think to break down the index of our state, and we need to roll up our sleeves people to begin work. If we work to talk, I don't see any reason why River State should be generating 170 billion while Lagos State is generating 600 billion. Talking
about the index here in the state. Do you think, you just talked about the valuation of the naira, the dollar, and so it's making it look like we did a great job. So I'm going to ask this question. It's been in my mind. Do you think that the IGR, as seen on paper, matches the development in British State? Because the level of development in British State, because when you look at the statistics, they will tell you that British State is viable. What that means is without the federal allocation, River State can survive. But do you see matching the development, given that with the IGR, we get FAC, we get the 13% derivation? So what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think that question should rather be more genuine. There should rather be a more holistic question when not just be narrowed to River State, because I think it's an African thing. It's more of an African thing because globally, if you see, look at the economies that are doing very well globally. Africa as a continent would have been growing year on year for the past 2 decades. Would have really crossed about 10 billion for the past 2 years, but that has not still trickled down to the average African. You know, that's the simple scenario, and that shows that we're not in isolation of what the continent trend is. The problem is not about the amount of growth; it's the amount of the disease that will not be able to dispense the growth to touch the lives of the average people in our street. That is where the problem is. I think that's where the chunk of our problem is. So we need to find ways to translate that. Now, you made you talked about your question. You talked about the fact that we've not been able to see that much development. I think in the States, without missing words, I think in the States we've been able to. We've tried pushing the needle on the developments, especially when it has to do with infrastructure. In the past 8 years, the state has definitely made some kind of leap forward in infrastructural development as against even that of the state, if you ask me. Okay. But the major issue here is the fact that we need to begin to encourage more of the MSMEs, the related growth in the state. That's really what I would want us to focus. If you look at the states like Lagos should have been able to make more MSME related development in the idea of expansion as against that of Rivers. And that brings us to my first call on the growth trajectory of states, which should rather be more of a horizontal trajectory as a project where not just one store of the seeing providing the growth IGR nets. It should rather be more dispersed, where different sectors, just like I mentioned on what we call the import sector market, like the eco markets, and I think that's what we call the spare parts association. So the smaller markets like what we call the abattoirs, as simple as the abattoirs markets like my one market and all of that. Have you ever asked yourself, my one market has been commissioned all this year? Is it not? We should have been in the third or fourth or fifth market as against the section that has been commissioned. We need to speed open that sector, that phase of the market for small and medium.
Genetics now. I got what you're saying. Okay. All right, at this point, I think. Sorry, Mr. Bobmanuel. Yeah, we lost the connection for a while. I think from the part where you made reference to my one market. Can we do a quick recap, please? Oh, still crazy network now. All right, I will do a reconnection, and hopefully we will have a better network when we reconnect. But for now, I would like to take your calls, and I'd like to hear from you. Tom, how is this reflected in the development of our state? How is this reflected in the economy of the state? And everyone point accusing fingers to Lagos, to Abuja, the federal government. Everyone always point to the federal government. We always want to say, the president has not done this, the president has not done that. However, we have state governors and we have government chairman. And looking at this data, he says, we've generated XYZ amount. We are number 2. If it were an exam, we have passed in flying colours, right? And how does this really affect you and I economically in terms of development and all of that? So I really would love to hear from you. I'll open the phone line shortly. 08179230002 and 08179230003. Your WhatsApp message should go to the number 0809036416. My network is really terrible and I find it difficult to react. However, I'd like to hear from you at this point, and let's get your take. How is this impacting your life generally? Do you think the local government chairman have been creative enough in terms of generating revenue, or it is basically waiting for I just got a text message in Apple Pause. Someone just said, we're not seeing it, we're not feeling it. But really, 0817923000 and 081792300003. If River State rank second, what is the evidence to show? Come to Ozozoiche, nothing to show that we're part of River State from Ozozoiche. But again, the question is Ozozoiche really contributing to the revenue generation? Let's see this one. This one says, man of the people. River State second IGR for 2022. The IGR shows in all the 23 local government areas of River State, I believe tier 3. All right, welcome back. Okay, so you were talking about my one market before the network went crappy.
Yeah. I was trying to shed light on the fact that yes, the state has succeeded very well in the 8 years, even more as against that of the Lagos State. But I think that the states could still do a lot better than what we ordinarily would have done. I think we could shift the needle on the MSME space. And I was talking about my one market. I made my one market. Now the project of my one market was commissioned a couple of years back. Not being able to get traders into that space to begin to carry out their legitimate businesses. I would think if that had not been done, they would not be able to complete the circle of that market. And by this time, I would expect that the state should have the impact on the basis of the development of that market from where it is as the commission of the fully regional phase to commissioning or commission to direct picture of the expansion of economic activities on those fronts. Now you have markets like the fruit garden markets that currently they've only coming and the activities that are taking place there, but those markets should be expanded. Now economic policies are actually put in place to direct development in different sectors of the economy, which is very important. So when you are directing the economic activities in certain sectors of the economy, it must have to be deliberate. It must have to be very deliberate and very, very meticulously carried out. Don't just stop on commissioning of one. It starts at getting the traders, MSMEs to go into those places, because the MSME sector of the economy, just like I mentioned, is the engine room of growth of that economy. And we've not been able to tap into that potential we have. Now the economic growth that are taking spaces in River State need to be more deliberate. I talked about the abattoir markets. We need to set an abattoir market that would meet the status of a city like River State, the states like
economy. And we need to have proper plans on strategies on how to grow those markets to Nigerians out for their growth and the future of such markets. So we need to have a 10, 15, 20 on all of these things because we're not planning their growth. For the nation, the eco group that is hanging in the balance where they are today. Because we've not been able to plan both. When I say we, I mean the inclusive of self as a leader in the private sector, not just the government.
Unfortunately,
we need to work with them to see how we could grow the economy of it, even beyond where it is.
all right, I would have to pause you now because we've got to go. There's an issue. All right.